You can send in your questions to our speakers. Right now, we'll talk about SDG 3, good health and well-being. Our moderator is Natalia Sokolova, Soedinение Foundation. Natalia, thank you very much. In this session, we'll talk about SDG 3, good health and well-being. We will discuss projects that were particularly relevant during the pandemic, which was a serious test for all of us, especially in situations where our organizations are not directly related to fighting COVID specifically. So we'll discuss the situation with the pandemic, how it affected our work in healthcare. We'll talk about our sustainability agenda. The Russian Donors Forum will present the results of their recent survey, and we hope to hear some success stories in attaining SDGs in good health. We have Boris Galatin from the Počet Foundation. We have Tatiana Rashkova, head of the Department of Social Policy and LMK. We have Faina Zakharova, a Lifeline Foundation. Alexander Runov, psychologist, head of the psychological service at the Sunflower Foundation. And we have Svetlana Gorbacheva, AIF Kind Heart Foundation, and we have Nikolai Yudin, the founder of Nagil Project. Let's start with the Lifeline Foundation. Faina Zakharova, could you please tell if you faced any particular challenges during the pandemic? Faina?
Фаина, пожалуйста, звук включите, у вас звук отключен.
Faina, your mic is on mute.
Все, слышно меня? Да.
Can you hear me now? Yes. I was saying hello. It's really nice to hear and see all of you. This is the second day I've been watching this conference. It's nice to see. So let me tell you about our situation during the pandemic. On the one hand, I want to start with the positive things, and later on I will share about our problems. Actually, there were quite a few positive things. My colleagues were able to adapt all of our processes pretty quickly. We've got a large database. Alpha Bank helped us with that. So we were able to adapt quickly once the pandemic started, and our employees were able to work from home. It took some time, but eventually we were able to cope with this. With some of our programs, medical services are being offered at federal hospitals. Some of the clinics closed during the pandemic, or access was restricted. And they suspended all of their rehabilitation programs and laser surgeries. So this was a serious problem with the children arriving from other cities. Laser surgeries, we had to put that on hold.
Центр психоневрологии, они просто фактически были закрыты на карантин.
There were a few centers that had to close for quarantine. Unlike Kazan, the center there continued their operation. They just had a separate ward for the coronavirus.
Никак не смешиваться с обычным приемом. Поэтому они там все выстроили с точки зрения менеджмента и организации очень правильно.
So they were able to organize their work very effectively.
И там как раз как так все сложилось позитивно, что мы для них заказывали, как я говорю, космическое оборудование для...
And we purchased some equipment for them. So in terms of sustainability, unfortunately, there is an issue with the audio. I can't hear this speaker.
С одной стороны, способствует качеству, естественно, лечения и операции, и еще повышает квалификацию самих врачей, работающих на этом оборудовании. Я считаю, что это очень серьезное направление. Именно вот.
This is a serious matter as far as sustainability is concerned. So we keep working. Just like we keep working with the Proton Center in St. Petersburg. I mentioned this yesterday. And in April, the government allocated 1.5 billion rubles specifically for this purpose. 2 million per person. So 600 people, 400 children.
Сейчас мы продолжаем, но это уже не злокачественные.
Currently, we continue our work.
Не менее опасно. Поэтому с точки зрения
for cancer patients. So as far as medical aspects are concerned, our work continued. We allocated 7 million rubles for PPE. They had a huge COVID ward.
Осталось и тоже выстроено таким образом, что не смешиваются. Естественно, здоровые дети плановые и заболевшие, к сожалению, ковидом. Вот, поэтому в этом плане для нас это хороший опыт именно.
This was very good experience for us in terms of our administrative experience, and I hope this will help us going forward.
Сказать, что мы, конечно, все-таки фонд, который очень много и специализируется даже, да, в этом офлайн мероприятии. То есть у нас большое количество событий, которые мы...
But our foundation also does a lot of offline events.
У нас, что называется, нереализованная выгода, это порядка 20 миллионов.
So we saved about 20 million rubles because of those canceled events. Because we didn't organize our joint runs with the Russian Railways, Xiaomi. We had to use the online format for all of our events, and you can't run online. We had to cancel our London event because we have this musical project. It was canceled. So there were some serious losses related to that. We were expected to have balls, and we planned to raise about 8 million through that event. It was canceled. Alpha Future Take with Xiaomi, with the Rostec. So we have a long list of events that we had to cancel, fundraising events, and this had a financial effect on our situation. We lost 20 million in raised money because of that. Yet we were able to achieve all of our KPIs because we end our financial year in July. Our strategic partners stayed with us and our major donors. When I told them this was an emergency, they supported us. And one of my friends sent a huge amount of money to our foundation. And in fact, we did not just achieve our KPI 3, we more than achieved it. We had a surplus. So in June, our financial standing was quite good. So now we're coming up with new projects that involve digital marketing. We have some strategic sessions planned. So we see some changes, not in terms of medicine, in terms of the way we do things. So you always have these two sides, two aspects, the good and the bad, positive and negative things. And all those things, they incentivize us, they stimulate us, make us think harder. They motivate us to push forward. On the one hand, it's a tough situation. Thank you very much. You sound very positive. So this means there are opportunities for development. We received a question in the chat box. You're saying you became involved much more in helping cancer patients among children. Can you please explain why the Proton program is not covered by government funding, even though this is a very effective treatment? I don't quite agree with this question. I think we started supporting proton therapy. The amount of government support was 100, the quota of 100 patients for Moscow and 100 for St. Petersburg. Clearly, this was not enough. When I had meetings with officials at the Ministry of Healthcare, they said that's what we can do right now. If you can help, you're welcome to help us. That's when we started supporting this work.
Показал, что протонную терапию надо включать в протокол лечения раньше, потому что это почти финальный этап, и он уже поздно.
You need to start earlier. If you start later, treatment is extremely expensive. So that's why there's a need to reconsider the approach using proton therapy. Yet in April, the government provided more funds, 1.5 billion. Clearly, this may not be enough because we need more, but what's important is proton therapy is not recommended for all children because this procedure is quite complicated. It has to be approved and recommended by a list of experts. Not every region can use this approach. Not every region has specialists. Many doctors don't think they're qualified enough to do proton therapy. We even offered our help to train them, to organize workshops for doctors. So I don't know what the position of the government is, but at least we see some improvement in what the government does. They offered 2 billion more rubles than they usually do. And now there is this second proton center. In Kazan. It opened and they had to shut it down temporarily because of some malfunction. But once they open the second center, definitely the government will provide additional funds for that, because the center in St. Petersburg is a private one. But this second one is government run. So the government will have to fund it. So that's my answer to your question. Thank you. Obviously, our lives have changed in a major way, especially with people who regularly need medical assistance. And we have the Подсолнух Sunflower Foundation. They do a regular study among their clients. So I turn to Alexander Novak now. How can your experience be used for Sustainable Development Goals? Hello. I have some slides I prepared for you. I will tell you about our results, but I will put it in the general context. Even though we deal with a specific issue, it's a very narrow area. We deal with immunodeficiency, yet the methodology we used in our work, I believe, is pretty universal. It can also be used for other conditions and in evaluating long-term healthcare programs. First, just a couple of words about our center. We deal with immunodeficiency, autoimmune conditions, when the immune system works too much, excessively. And our situation is somewhat different from European or global indicators, we're pretty much like Turkey in terms of indicators compared to other diseases in Russia and life expectancy for patients in other countries. Because in Europe, many things pose no difficulty for patients. So we have been working with our audience and we started to consider how we should structure our programs. We wanted them to be effective, of course, yet at the same time, we realized that demand was changing. We have an idea of what our patients need, but it's often useful to do a reality check. And we prepared a questionnaire on the quality of life. I don't want to get into details of this questionnaire form. The point is, this is one way you can interact with the community. When you deal with the patients with rare diseases, you may only have 1 or 2 or 3 persons like that in the whole city. And Moscow has the biggest number of patients of this kind. It's not because they all move here. It's because diagnostics are much better in Moscow than in smaller cities. And Moscow is a large portion of Russia's population. The average figure worldwide is 1 person with this disease per 10,000 people. In Russia, the percentage of such people is even lower. So we realized we need this question form because we talked to these patients a lot, asking them what would work, how we can measure their quality of life. So it turned out we couldn't find a questionnaire form that would work for us. Some were not adapted to Russian realities. For example, wearing a face mask is a normal thing for us, but a year ago, a person wearing a face mask in a small village somewhere in the Baikal region would immediately separate a kid from other kids playing in the sandbox. Everybody would think that this is an infectious kid. And we work with genetic disorders. So these are not infectious diseases. Well, European questionnaire forms did not take this into account. So we reviewed several questionnaire forms, and eventually we realized that either they would not work for Russia because they were not adapted to Russian conditions, or they were not adapted specifically to this medical condition. So we started talking to patients and doctors. This was the first step. We started inviting people to participate in this work. We conducted over 600 interviews and conversations and classes with people from various parts of Russia. And eventually we came up with a proposal, our vision at the National Congress for our patients. We discussed the situation, we got some feedback, we saw some positive and negative responses, and we kept on work to put together a community for this patient. This is another important thing, by the way. You may only have 1 or 2 such people per city, and it's hard for them to be left on their own with such a difficult condition. You need a strong community because it can help, they can help one another, and they can influence the healthcare system. So we went back to the community with a questionnaire form. We prepared to collect their comments, and as stage 3 of our work, when we received their comments, we made our questionnaire form perfect, and we came back to our patients. We did not ask them to fill out the questionnaire form, though. We asked them to circulate this questionnaire form as widely as possible. And we worked with patients in various provinces of Russia. We asked them to reach out to their audience. Let's say patients from Kazan, they face different difficulties than patients in Ufa, for example. So we encourage them to talk to their regional communities. And as a result, we collected some data which we can now use to plan our programs, to develop our programs. For example, social isolation, the issue that we all face this year. To our patients, this is how they live. You can't talk to other people properly. So we found out that over 50% of our patients say they suffer from social isolation. We understand that our social rehabilitation programs will be helpful to these patients. We opened an online community for teenagers, and we continued with our education work. There is another problem related to face masks and stigma. Patients say that they usually face this problem when dealing with medical healthcare workers. When they tell a doctor they have immunodeficiency, they tell them, "Oh, you've got AIDS. AIDS. You should go to a separate line. You should go to another clinic. I need an extra pair of gloves to talk to you." See, many doctors, many healthcare workers don't even understand what this disease is all about. So we kept on working with the medical schools, explaining to frontline healthcare workers what immunodeficiency is and how it is treated. And since our patients will have to live their whole lives with this disease, we're looking for a long-term effect, and we want to gradually expand our program to cover more territories. I'm running out of time here, but in some parts of Russia, it takes just one day to take a person to a clinic, and they have to go to a clinic every month for blood transfusion. There are some provinces where it takes up to a week to get into a hospital. So for 7 days, you're unable to work, and this seriously affects your life. And another key indicator is ambiguity, uncertainty, and being unable to plan things. So we continued with our medical programs for patients and training programs for doctors. Like I said, all of our programs are long-term, and we will only be able to evaluate their efficiency in the long term. We measure the things we need to measure with the audience we need to measure. We have a community following the results. And based on this data, we will be able to evaluate how we were able to change the lives of these people through our programs, or as the government reconsiders its strategy. For more information on this work, you can go to a small booklet we published on psychological aid, how immunodeficiency affects people's lives. So I highly recommend this booklet to you, and I will be happy to provide it to you if you would like to read it. Thank you. Thank you, Alexander. I don't think we have any questions for you in the chat box, but please stay with us until the end of this session because we may revisit this issue. Thank you very much. This is an interesting study. And of course, there are people with chronic conditions affected by the pandemic, and it's not always health issues. There was a study done this year, done among pensioners supported by a foundation, and Boris Kalanin will now share the results of this work with us. Boris, are you here, Boris? Yes, my mic was on mute, sorry. Let me share my screen. Can you see my slides? Yes, we can see. You can switch to full screen. That's, yeah, like this. Good. We also had a study, but first, a couple of words about the Podshot Foundation. It's a corporate foundation of Russian railways. We focus on older people. We have been doing this for over 20 years, and every year, hundreds of retired people, pensioners, receive all sorts of support from us. In April this year, we did a study among retired railway workers. We used a well-structured questionnaire. We did this together with the methodology lab of RANEPA. We did interviews by phone with the retired railway workers or their relatives. We made 19,000 telephone calls and we interviewed 1,800 people. And since this was a pretty big sample, and we have retired railway workers living throughout Russia, we can extrapolate it to the whole country. So let me share the results of our study. First of all, we saw that most of the people we questioned were women, 64%. You have one man, one senior male for 3 women, which means there's a serious issue with being single or lonely among women. And this is something that government and NGOs should pay attention to. More on that later, though. 35% of our respondents are 80+ years old. And our study was quite unique. It is only rare that you see polls or surveys conducted among people in such advanced age. Of course, the quality of life in such advanced age largely depends on your housing conditions and your mobility. 78% of the people live in apartment blocks, and 62% of them said they don't have an elevator in their building, even though they don't live on the ground floor. Many of them have difficulties with moving around. They are basically locked inside their apartments. They're unable to travel, to move around on their own. They need help. And very likely, these people don't ever leave their apartments, or do so only very rarely. That's, if you extrapolate it to the whole of country, that's 13 million people like that. And we believe this is a huge problem, which means people are unable, are not mobile, are not able to move around their city. Then there are people who live in separate houses, yet they have other problems. They don't have hot water, they don't have heated toilets in their houses. And that's about half of all the pensioners in Russia. So their housing conditions don't meet standards. In Europe, there is a program renovating housing for retired people. They can fix your doors, your shower stalls, etc. In Russia, we don't have a program like that, but I think the time has come to start working on this problem. Now, health condition. Our survey revealed that 79% of the people have conditions that interfere with their health. 32% are invalids. Over half, about 55%, who are not officially regarded as invalids still are in serious, have serious issues with their health and require medical help. At the same time, there is this serious problem where older people think they don't need medical assistance. People are ashamed of going to see a doctor and asking for help. 83% of those who do not receive any help say they don't need any help. And this is 44% of all the respondents, of all the retired people. This means that there is a huge proportion of people who actually do need help, yet only a fraction of them admit that they do need help and they do not receive it. Also, we know that we don't have the culture of planning in the advanced stage. There is no infrastructure for that. We don't have a developed system of alternative housing for senior citizens. And when we asked people, if they had any plans for their advanced years, most of them said they hope their families will support them, or they prefer not to think about it. And only 5% said they would be willing to move into an assisted living facility. And currently, this area is underdeveloped in Russia, and there is not enough beds in such facilities for all people who might need them. Finally, families, most of the respondents live alone or only with their immediate relatives, just 1 or 2 people per household. Like I said, the phenomenon of being lonely in the advanced stage is a widespread phenomenon for over 10 years. That's 24% of all the respondents. 4% of retired people are fully lonely, according to our study. You can see the numbers below. 77% of the retired people said they regularly talk to their relatives. 24% of them said they never feel lonely. Yet if you listen to those conversations, you'll get a different feeling. Among those living alone, the percentage of those who often feel lonely is 3 times as high as opposed to those living with their relatives. And as people get advanced in age, they tend to live all alone longer and longer and feeling lonely. There is one positive point, though. Our study revealed that those who use smartphones or computers are less likely to feel alone because they can communicate with others. So, introducing new technology to our retired people will help with their socialization. That's all from me. Thank you. Thank you, Boris. I have a question for you. You raised this issue of why retired people don't request help. Are they aware? Do they know what kind of assistance they're entitled to from the pension fund, from charitable foundations? Yes, basically they are aware of that, but we know that there is this issue with awareness. retired people are often modest. They have a Soviet upbringing. That's how they were raised, not to talk about their problems. And they think if they're entitled to something, the government will always come and provide this to them. They don't have to ask. So it is a problem, and we are working on it. I hope, though, that as they gradually learn to use digital technology, if they want, as they improve their computer literacy, as they learn to use computers and smartphones more and more, we can use this technology to reach out to them and inform them that they're entitled to certain kinds of assistance. So how did you do your survey? By telephone calls? Yes. Yes, we did it together with Renapa. We created a sample 1,800 telephone calls. Is it possible to get the data from your report? Surely, no problem. I think the organizers have my slides, but if you send your contact info, I will send it to you personally. Yes, you can send a link to the chat box. Yes. Leave me your email or your phone number, and I will forward it to you. Thank you, boys. So we are looking at different angles, different perspectives. And two speakers joined us yesterday, social entrepreneur, Nikolai Yudin and Ms. Barabanova. So I will ask them to share now with us now whether they were able to adapt, but just please keep it brief because we are running a little bit over time. Olga, who will go first?
Николай. Давайте я начну.
Okay, I'll start.
Да, меня зовут Ольга Барабанова, я представляю компанию Kinesis. Мы производим активные кресло-коляски, как для детей, так и взрослых. Я коротко расскажу о наших продуктах, наверное, о как раз итогах ковида и 2020 года, о появлении наших колясок, сделанных специально для малышей. Сейчас попробую.
We made special wheelchairs for little children. I will share my screen now.
Сейчас, секунду.
Just a second.
Мне это дает сделать, к сожалению, Zoom. Вот, надеюсь, всем все видно. Вы знаете, почему-то он на меня не включается.
You could switch to full screen. It's okay. Leave it like that. That's fine.
Да. В 2020 году у нас появились коляски Kinesis.
Designed a new wheelchair, Kinesis AT. These are wheelchairs for little children. So now we have a full lineup of all kinds of wheelchairs. We start with children 1.5 years old, and we have a complete lineup of wheelchairs for adults as well. This is a wheelchair for children 1.5 to 5 years old, and we have also other wheelchairs for children over 5 years old. We are based in Moscow, use advanced technology. We work with carbon and ultralight aluminum. We manufacture all parts here in Russia. We only purchase wheel sets, big wheels abroad. But that's what all leading brands do. Our costs are very low compared to similar products in other countries. We have our own designers who produced this optimum design. It is intended for active
и также позволяет родителям быть
So children
мобильными,
can
потому
be
что
very
вес этой
mobile
коляски
and
всего 7
parents can be
килограмм.
very mobile
Также
because
все
this
наши
wheelchair
коляски
weighs
эргономичные и
only
очень
7
легкие.
kilograms and they're all very
Мы
ergonomical,
делаем коляски по индивидуальным
very
параметрам, то есть
light.
каждая коляска
We
может быть
use individual
адаптирована к
parameters
сложностям
for each wheelchair.
каждого
Each wheelchair
конкретного
can be
ребенка.
adapted
Коляски для спинолифта
to
делаются, например,
every
с теневой
particular
спинкой
child.
и позволяют
We can
ребенку сидеть
adjust the seat
суперудобно, несмотря на особенности
so the
осанки.
child
Коляски
is
для детей
comfortable,
с СМА делаются с поддерживающей ортопедической
even
спинкой.
if they
Коляски
have
для детей с ДЦП также могут делаться с
palsy
креплениями
or
корсета и
multiple
ортезов.
sclerosis. We can add
Стоимость нашей базовой
extra
комплектации
devices.
99 тысяч рублей.
The
Это
cost of this
ультракачественный
wheelchair
продукт. Мы
is
используем
99,000 rubles.
колеса чешского
This is super high
производства.
quality
Мы
wheelchair. We use light wheels
делаем
manufactured in
коляски
Czech
легкими,
Republic.
компактными, удобно складывающимися, и
And they're
пишем
easy
много
to
настроек.
fold,
У нас
very
есть
easy to
возможности
transport. We
настройки
have
как переднего
many
колеса, так и
levers
подножки,
to
высоты
adjust
спинки, высоты ручек,
wheels, the
возможности
seat
настройки
handles,
антиопрокидывателей и многое другое.
and many other
Мы
things.
видим, что рынок в России очень большой, и
The
на
market
самом деле мы не
in
просим
Russia
для
is
никаких
huge,
льгот.
and we're
Мы
not
сейчас
asking for
работаем над
any
тем, чтобы Фонд
benefits
социального
from the
страхования
government.
начал выдавать наши
We
коляски
just
бесплатно. Мы подали
want the
на
social
получение
insurance
регистрационного
fund
удостоверения
to
по этой
start
коляске все документы.
issuing
К
our
сожалению, срок
wheelchairs for
получения
free to
регистрационного
people who
удостоверения
need them.
составляет до 1,5 лет.
Unfortunately, it will take a
Заказы нам
year
нужны
and a
сейчас.
half to
В любом случае, мы представляем очень
go through the registration
конкурентоспособный
process,
продукт,
and we
потому
need
что если мы
contracts right now. This
конкурентов,
is a
то
very
в
good
нашей
product. If you
ценовой,
compare
в нашей
our
весовой
wheelchairs to that
категории
of
и в
our
нашей категории
competitors,
удобства, единственный
at this
для
level
нас
of
конкурент
comfort,
это Pantera
the
Micro,
only
это
competitor is
шведская
Pantera
коляска,
Micro. This
которая
is
сейчас, к
a
сожалению,
wheelchair
стоит уже
manufactured
гораздо
in
больше,
Sweden,
чем
but
196
it
тысяч
costs
рублей, потому что
much,
презентация
much more
по ходу
than
пути
our
курс доллара
wheelchair
успел подрасти
costs
немножко.
because
Вот, соответственно, наша
the
стоимость
exchange
получается больше,
rate
чем
has
в
changed.
2 раза ниже.
So
Также из
our
плюсов, в
wheelchair is
отличие от
more than
Пантеры, у
twice
нас
as cheap.
все-таки локальное
And
производство с
unlike
возможностью обслуживания, с
Panther,
возможностью
we manufacture
гарантийного
locally.
сервиса,
We
и
can offer
также у
after
нас
sales
кастомизация.
service,
То есть наша каждая коляска будет выполнена по размерам конкретного ребенка,
and we
коляска
also
Пантера не
customize our
будет иметь
wheelchairs.
такого опционала.
Panther wheelchairs are not customized.
Сейчас у нас большая команда и собственное
We
производство в
have a
Москве,
large
нас
team.
11
We
человек,
have
у
our
нас
own
есть
manufacturing
кастомная
site in
лаборатория,
Moscow. We
так мы
have
это называем, и
30
планируем расширяться
employees. We have
до
a
полноценного
design
завода.
bureau, and
Вместе с
we
Фондом
plan
«Помощь
to
детям» мы
build
сделали сбор на
a
50 колясок
factory.
в марте
We
2020
manufactured 50
года.
wheelchairs in
Мы как
March.
бизнес помогали с точки зрения фандрайзинга, с точки зрения
We
направленности
helped
этого
to
сбора. Мы
raise
коммуницировали
funds.
с лидерами мнений и помогли
We
привлечь
worked with opinion leaders.
необходимые финансовые ресурсы для того, чтобы фонд смог
We
сделать
were
заказ
able
на
to
50
raise
колясок. Сейчас мы
funds so
производим
the
эти коляски и
foundation
в
can
ближайшее время начинаем
order
их
50
выдавать
wheelchairs. So
детям.
very soon
Также мы
we'll
можем быть интересны
manufacture
для
these wheelchairs
сотрудничества
and get
фонда,
them
потому
to
что мы
kids.
готовы разрабатывать новые продукты
Also,
под
we are
запросы
open
каждого
to
фонда. И с
collaboration with
плюс помощь
various
детям сейчас мы
foundations.
разрабатываем новый
We can
продукт, это активные
customize and
руки и
design
активизаторы.
wheelchairs that are
Если у фондов
required
есть
for a
какие-то запросы,
particular
мы всегда
foundation.
готовы
So
встречаться, показывать
if a
возможности
foundation
производства
is
и
interested, we are always willing
делать
to meet with you.
продукт под
We can
запрос фонда.
show our factory to you,
На
and
этом,
we
наверное,
can
все, и могу
see
передать
if we
слово
can manufacture
Николаю.
something specifically intended for you. Nikolai? Yes, hello. I want to show you my slides now. Can you see them? Yes, very good. My name is Nikolai Yudin. I want to tell you about our project. We have Uniwell, and let me explain what this is and what we did during 2020.
Что мы делаем?
So what do we do? People need to be independent and they need freedom of movement. So the wheelchairs that Olga manufactures, they meet this need, yet at the same time, there are regular wheelchairs that are too heavy and inconvenient
And mechanical wheelchairs, it's hard for a person to travel more than 5 kilometers in a regular wheelchair. So let's say they have this regular wheelchair, yet they absolutely need to be able to travel for more than 5 kilometers so they can feel fully autonomous, independent. So if you have a mechanical wheelchair, you cannot travel over 5 kilometers. The average number is 2 kilometers. They can travel on their own, but they're too heavy. It's hard to travel with them. So we came up with an idea. We created a gadget. It takes 5 minutes to mount it on a regular mechanical wheelchair, and it weighs only 5 kilograms. If you can see me, here it is. This is the powertrain. I can lift it with one hand, one finger actually. This is a very light addition to your wheelchair, but it's really helpful. This is not something you will use rarely. This is something you will be using every day. We believe that this addition has potentially immense effect because it increases your traveling distance by a factor of 7. In a mechanical wheelchair, you will only be able to travel for 3 kilometers, whereas with this addition, you will be able to travel for 20 kilometers, and your hands will not be sore after that. Because rims are made out of metal and they're dirty. This affects your hands and ankle, your elbows and shoulders. 70% of people in wheelchairs have issued with their hands. Our hands are not intended to rotate wheels all the time. So in 6 years, 70% of wheelchair people develop medical conditions with their hands. And when people get a chance to move around freely, they start to feel independent, they start to feel autonomous. When people ride around in a wheelchair with this added wheel, people don't feel sorry for a person like that. Negative feelings. On the other, everybody's interested and curious, and children ask them if they can try their wheelchair, and they want the same for kids ask their moms to buy the same thing for them, and this makes patients feel better. There are other companies around the world who make similar things, but they weigh 12 kilos or more. So we believe if it's too heavy, you can't use it every day. It's difficult to use it on a daily basis because it's too heavy, it's too hard. Can you imagine if your cell phone weighed 12 kilos? You won't carry it with you all the time, right? But we want this to be something that people carry with them all the time. That's why we made it only 5 kilos, and no other company in the world has anything like that. This is some feedback, comments from people. I can tell you, we have kids studying at 4 years old. They use this added wheel so they can go to school on their own. We have a large number of college students who use our product. Before going to college, they bought this device, and now they can go to college on their own. Some people purchased this extra wheel before moving abroad. In the past, they would see the park outside their home, but they knew they could not go there because they can't travel. They needed somebody to help them, somebody to go with them. But now they can go there on their own. They're independent.
сделали за вот время нашей пандемии? Во-первых, мы разработали...
So what did we do during the pandemic? We developed a new version of our product. You can see it's much larger, but it's still not too heavy. We're looking for partners who would help us implement this project, because this is not rocket science, of course, but still, this is a pretty expensive project. So we're looking for partners, and we're looking for ways to make it more affordable people. And I'm not only talking about money, I'm talking about government support programs. The government should help people purchase this. We are not included in the federal registry because it's just a wheelchair that's included in the federal list. Any additional devices are not included. So we need assistance with being included in this list of products provided by the federal government. And we have many people who reach out to us saying they want, they can pay part of the amount, but we don't have enough money to pay the full amount. And we are looking for maybe a foundation who would help us purchase it. So that's another area where we need your assistance. Maybe set up a procedure where a person would contact us, and then we maybe put a group of people together and we can help this group of people co-fund this product for them. Thank you, Nikolai. Yulia Bogdanova, to you now. KPMG, could you please comment on these two presentations we just had? Technical devices for rehabilitation. Yes, let me explain. KPMG have been doing 4 programs for children with disabilities over the past 3 years. We did not reinvent the wheel, we just adapted global experience. Let me tell you about the size of the market. A program in the US has the budget of $13 billion a year. It's a mass phenomenon, and it's funded by the government. What do we know about the children? We know that they develop as their brain develops. And the way the brain works is everything affects it. And children become independent once they turn 1 year old. If a child is unable to move on their own when they're 1 year old, we need to provide them with a device that would enable them to be independent. Some adults may think children don't really need that. They don't want children to be able to move around on their own when they're still little. Yet, our experience tells us otherwise. In Scandinavian countries, they started experimenting with making people independent in early age, and as a result, children started using all sorts of devices on their own. Of course, adults were concerned for their safety. There was a situation when a child told another child, if you don't give me this toy, I will run you over. But psychological development changed. These children became more confident. Their role is much bigger now. And all the factors that determine your success, being problem solving, other capabilities, they really improved. It's important for foundations and investors to understand that this is not just a fun thing. We provide children with their future. What Nikolai does for adults, it's a very valuable device.
and I went to see all these things. The batteries they use, they're very convenient. You don't have to think about recharging all the time. And there is even a small computer that's built in that adapts the speed of movement. You can use this device to move around the office, discussing things. I mean, this kind of products really produce social impact. So I'm very, very happy for these two guys. And they manufacture locally, so this money will stay in our economy. So these are two really valuable projects. Thank you, Yulia, for your comments. I think these are two very good projects that will prove their efficiency in the near future, especially if you talk to people with disabilities. They will confirm this to you, how helpful these products are. So I think this would also be an important contribution to SDGs as well. Now we'll move on to the matters of how business addresses various issues. And we have OMK. Let's listen to them, how they work on SDGs. Tatiana Rashkova. Hello. I have some slides as well.
Я заслушалась, честно говоря.
You know, I got lost listening to others. I was listening to the NGOs. It was really interesting. The studies that you did and the last two presentations by social entrepreneurs. We have our own corporate foundation, and we also work with mobility issues and people with disabilities. So I hope we can do something together. Now, as far as the pandemic is concerned, of course, it created new challenges for us. So SDG 3, increasing life expectancy, it got a new meaning for us today. And we know that lifestyle has a huge effect on the quality of life. So we have our own healthcare program. It comes in modules, as you can see on this slide. Like other big companies, we had additional costs to improve safety due to the pandemic. We observed all the requirements imposed by the government, and we even went further. The government requirement was for employees 65 plus years old to work from home. In our company went further, and we made the changes related to catering, lifestyle, etc. But what I would like to tell you about today is a program we did as part of our healthcare efforts, Healthy Choice. It's a program intended to instill proper healthy lifestyle habits. We started this program before the pandemic, and I would like to tell you how we transformed this program after the pandemic broke out. And I would like to tell you about our volunteer movement, what role volunteers played. So when we first started this program, the program Healthy Choice was to produce ambassadors of healthy lifestyle. Our employees who like to follow healthy lifestyle principles themselves and lead others. And this system works like a multi-level marketing system.
you pick these ambassadors, then they pick their teams, and then they create challenges and competitions promoting healthy lifestyle, getting more and more people involved. So we invested in our ambassadors, call them health managers. We offered them a very good training program, which we did together with the Adidas Academy. And after they went through this transformational program and recruited their health teams that carried out their challenges using our communications program, what you see on the screen now is the indicators we used for our contests. There are qualitative indicators for teams, physical activity indicators before and after for each of the teams, for each 3 months, and engagement in healthy lifestyle. And I'm happy that we had enough time to implement the first cycle before the pandemic. We got a good start, almost 600 people. We achieved some good results, improving healthy lifestyle. I apologize, Tatiana. Actually, you're not sharing your screen. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I thought this was still a preamble. Oh, I went over so many slides and you didn't tell me. Well, I'm sorry because I have 2 screens in front of me and I thought you were able to see everything. Can you see it now? No. You can't see it now? You gotta be kidding. No, we can't see anything. We see nothing. I'm doing everything the same way I did when we had a rehearsal. Okay, let me log out and log in again. Okay, sharing my screen right now. But actually, it was very good even without. Here, yes. Actually, I went over many of my slides already. So these are health managers. These are the indicators we used. And it's great that we have such people now. When COVID started, we had the core of our team ready, and working together with them, it was very easy for us working remotely from home to stay in contact with them. And we had communities set up. 90% of the participants are people who work at the factory. Our factory works 24/7. And only 10% of them were able to work from home. Other people had to travel to work. They risked their health. Of course, they observed safety measures. So since we had this core, we were able to introduce and circulate new guidance, new rules regarding healthy lifestyle. Of course, many athletic events had to be suspended. And still, because of our team, because of our guys, we would launch online challenges, videos. We shared videos. We shared, we did videos with aseptics, disinfectants, supporting each other, liking each other's videos. And the second part of our program, Health School, it was also launched before the pandemic. Our Healthy Choice program is intended primarily for people in good, healthy condition, where we just encourage people to support their good form. Health School program is intended mostly for people with certain difficulties, certain health issues. This program helps them learn more about their condition and use this knowledge to improve their condition. We're talking about medical knowledge
And it's a comprehensive program. It includes 12 modules. We're still moving it online. We haven't launched it yet. And finally, just a couple of words about our volunteers. Health volunteers. We added a new module, not just physical activity, mental health, work-life balance. We also added new ethics that caused widespread rejection during the initial days. Our volunteers did a study introducing this new culture of safety gradually. Of course, you have the CEO issuing an order or issuing an instruction on safety, but once people go outside, go to the city, they see people around them who don't really observe safety measures. They see people rejecting these new guidelines. This is a problem. This is the psychological problem. This is what we encountered. So our guys did a study. You can see the results here on the screen. 5 groups. We've consolidated our results. And what motivates people to observe safety measures? Because we didn't just want to introduce punishments for people who violated safety measures. We wanted to keep it positive. We wanted to motivate people to observe safety measures, not punish them for violations. So we looked at motives, what motivates people. We picked 5 categories. We dealt with what alarms people. And after that, we used our volunteer movement to launch a PR campaign, which proved really helpful and really supported our official communications. We developed anti-COVID etiquette. You can see portions of this program here, how we promoted saying hello without shaking hands, contact-free hello, how to ask other people to observe safety measures, how not to stay silent, how to, and many other psychological recommendations which prove really helpful. This works much better than instructions coming from the employer. Peer-to-peer communications. So this was also important, an important addition to standard measures. This is our standard contribution. We did all that, of course, as well. But in addition to that, we also had some unorthodox things that we came up with. This was our contribution to SDG 3, good health and well-being. Thank you, Tatiana. How effective was this PR campaign on safety measures? What is the current number of cases among your employees? Yes, we have this data. During the summer, we had a period in between the 2 waves. We launched this volunteer campaign in late May, and this was intended as a support because initially the employer issued the order saying otherwise people would be punished. And by the middle of May, people were so tired of all these orders and instructions and demands. You have so many negative things all around you. It was really difficult for people. And this PR campaign added some fresh air. And at that time, the situation was not as bad because even though we have a huge factory, 27,000 people working for us for a long time, Lipetsk was one of the hotbeds, yet within our company, figures were lower than on the average in our province. Right now, I can tell you that official statistics do not quite reflect the actual situation. Our figures are higher than the official statistics for the city of Lipetsk. So what we're doing right now, we observe these soft measures, but the biggest problem is whether the healthcare system in our city will be able to cope with the situation. We now have the same situation as other cities. Most of our doctors are sick right now, so everything we do today is to support the healthcare system, the frontline workers. This is our biggest emphasis right now. Thank you, Tatiana. We move on to the next speaker. The Russian Donors Forum did a large-scale survey on healthcare and the role of foundation. So Svetlana Gorbacheva will give us some preliminary results from this survey. And AIF Kind Heart Foundation is the official partner of this project. So Svetlana, give us some preliminary results of this survey. Thank you very much. Could you please put my slides on the screen?
Пока ждем, наверное, я тоже пару слов.
While we're waiting, I'll just start. I'll tell you about what we did. We had more than 20 in-depth interviews. We did an office study, and we'll keep working with opinion polls. We have processed some of the presidential grants, and the study will be done from June to December this year. So I only have preliminary results right now. So is it possible to put my slides on the screen? Okay, Svetlana, I'll contact one of the organizers because because the preliminary agreement, I think you can see the slides in the Donors Forum window. Yes, you can see your slides in the Donors Forum window. So go ahead.
Звук отключен. Света, звук отключен. Включите звук.
Svetlana, your mic is on mute. Okay, I was saying I can't see it, unfortunately. I can't see it in the Donors Forum window. Anyway, I have a second screen, so let's move on. Natalia, maybe you could help me. If there is a mismatch, let me know. So I told you about this survey. We wanted to see what the philanthropic community can do to help the healthcare system. Here on this slide, we can see our situation before COVID. My slides are divided into two parts, before COVID and during the COVID, because the situation really changed once the pandemic broke out. So, trends, achievements, problems. Under the achievements headline, we can put improved quality of healthcare services, provision of medical services to people with medical conditions,
significant increase in services offered to cancer patients, volunteering, purchasing high-tech medical equipment. Faina Zakharova did a very interesting presentation on the subject today, and the growth of preventative measures for early diagnosis. Trends: increased qualifications among healthcare workers. Some trends are more general. They are not necessarily related to immune medicine, but this definitely affects the quality of services provided, and NGOs moved on to systemic program activities. They provide comprehensive support from diagnostics to rehabilitation, not just an isolated help from time to time. Organizing councils or having a pool of medical experts. This is under the category of improving professionalism, developing telemedicine, offering online medical services, and finally problems. The biggest problem, of course, is that unfortunately, at this point, mechanism for systemic and productive cooperation with the Ministry of Healthcare haven't been established. There is still problem with access to top-level medical services in remote parts of Russia. The lack of common agenda within this sector and inability to put together a joint front. We have isolated efforts and small-scale collaborations. Now a few numbers from the next slide. A few numbers, a few important numbers. Before COVID, charitable organizations in Russia, we have 11,720 charitable organizations. Federal spending in 2018, 438.3 billion rubles. Top 10 NGOs supporting healthcare was 15.9, almost 16 billion rubles in 2018. 518 projects supported by the Presidential Grants Fund. 861 million, that's support from the Presidential Grant Fund for projects in this area. So that's pre-COVID. Now, once the pandemic broke out, the landscape became somewhat different. When the first wave started, based on the data we received from our colleagues, the biggest problem was allowing workers to work from home remotely. Yet half of the respondents were quite optimistic, and they said they will have time for strategic planning and development during the lockdown. But then we did the second poll in June, and they said they had to launch new projects to support people in medical institutions during the pandemic. That's about 20%, and half of NGOs said that they expected to raise less money, and 31% said they could not provide an estimate for
how much money they will be able to raise. So instead of getting a brief respite and dealing with internal tasks, what we saw is increased pressure, increased demand for services, increased amount of work, the need to transform aid programs, adopting new formats, and at the same time, we are raising less money. This is what we saw from this study.
Мы видим в исследовании, нужна помощь, которая опирается на данные Яндекс деньги.
We used Yandex money data. Healthcare donations dropped by 13% from last year. The number of payments dropped by 8% from last year. The good news is in Moscow, people's involvement in the operation of professional charitable organizations keeps growing, and the number one item here is donations for the treatment of children. Private foundations and companies supported NGOs working in this sector, and they provided funds for dealing with the pandemic, large amounts of money. For example, the Timchenko Foundation supported without a tender its partners. Nornickel provided 10 billion rubles to fight COVID-19. New programs and contents were launched to the Potanin Foundation. The CAF Foundation launched fundraising and information campaigns, saving those who are saving us. Giving Tuesday recently.
Форум доноров собрал более 40.
The Donors Forum collected more than 40 initiatives of its members during the pandemic. So if you go to the website of the Donors Forum, you can see what different foundations have been doing. And our slide shows some of them. For example, NGOs issued a petition to the president and the government asking to give NGOs a tax break during the pandemic, and many NGOs subscribed under this petition. And we know that the outcome was quite positive. What kind of government support we saw in 2020? The presidential grant fund launched a new contest for NGO support in 2020 in light of the pandemic. There were three areas: healthcare and healthy lifestyle, social protection, and supporting families and children. So 900 projects received support of 2 billion rubles. I apologize. We only have a couple of minutes left. So I think if our audience wants to learn more about government support, they can go over your slides on your own. I've got one more question which we need to answer. Yul is asking, Russia is ranked below 91 in per capita income according to the World Health Organization. What can be done to change it? Healthcare spending per capita. You're saying that the volume of donations decreased. Where did you get this information? You know, we had a few meetings with experts where we discussed various items, various aspects of our study. And I think this is a huge problem, communicating with the government and with the healthcare ministry. I'm not going to mention the 3 steps right now.
Мы можем собрать отдельно площадку для обсуждения, потому
что we can have a separate discussion on that, because all the stakeholders have a role to play, the role of the government, the role of business, the role of NGOs. As far as NGOs are concerned, I believe our biggest problem is that we are not united. We're isolated. We are unable to present a united position to the government. At this point, it looks like there's a group of independent lobbyists who have access to the top echelon and who push for some isolated decisions. I don't remember who it was who said this at our last meeting with experts, but many things that happen in our sector happen in a kind of a manual control mode. And the sector is only able to deal with certain issues in the manual control mode because we don't have an institutional mechanism for lobbying for our interests and influencing the government. We don't have institutional instruments for interacting with the government. That's what I think. But that's a subject for a separate conversation on a separate platform, and this is something we intend to do after we complete the preparation of this study. Thank you very much, Svetlana. Colleagues, thank you all for your participation. We had a very interesting discussion today. I didn't want to interrupt anybody because your presentations were all very interesting. So we'll share them through our chat room or through our correspondence. Thank you all very much. The best rest of the day, including on SDGs. Thank you.
Коллеги, спасибо огромное. У нас по плану онлайн-обед, и я хотела поблагодарить модератора и всех участников за эту сессию. Мы встретимся с вами в 2:15. Спасибо.
Спасибо, Саша.
Right now, we'll take a lunch break and we'll come back at 2:15.